Hey, it's Del Jackson, Ella Hoops Press Break. We got a special guest today. It's our friend from Berks County, Mike Drago. Mike's a veteran writer. He's involved with picking the All-State people. He's done football, he's done basketball, he's done all sports in Berks County, and he's one of our go-to guys when we have some questions about Berks, and he's always a great interview. How you doing, Mike?
Doing great, Del. Great to see you again.
Yeah, man. All right, let's start easy. Let's start with MikeDragosports.com. How in the world did that come about? I mean, I can relate to some of the things that you're going through. Go ahead.
Yeah, launched the website last August of 2021. You know, I've been in the newspaper business forever, for over 40 years, and that business has changed a lot over time, especially recently. And the Reading Eagle, where I worked for 38 years, underwent a lot of changes. I didn't see eye to eye with all of them. I thought I could do a better job on my own, and that's what I set out to do.
So I know some of these answers, but tell me as a businessman now, instead of just a writer employed by somebody, you're a businessman. So you got to go knock on doors and things like that. How much time and effort and what type of things have surprised you so far with your startup on this website?
Yeah, well, you know, the business side, that's not my forte, and I've had some help with that. You know, I've gotten some people that are involved in sales and let them try to sell advertising. Surprisingly, at the beginning, when I announced this, a number of advertisers came directly to me and said, hey, we want to be a part of this, which was really flattering because it's a startup operation. No one knows what it's going to look like or how it's going to take off. And some people had faith in me, and I think they wanted to be involved, you know, in my project. And that was really great to see. And we've been picking up steam for the last 13 months. We've got great sponsorship in the advertising side of it. Just added Redner's Markets recently, which is a kind of a Berks County institution. So we're really excited to be paired with them. Mortgage America came on at the very beginning. They've been our title sponsor since the beginning. So it's very exciting from that aspect of it. I had no background in sales. You know, when you're in the newspaper business, you stay away from that. The editorials was on the 4th floor, and the business people were down on the 2nd floor, and we never crossed paths, and that's the way it is in journalism. But in basically a one-man operation like this, you have to do a lot of things. So that's where I'm at. So
your site's a little bit different than our site in that it's a subscription base. So tell us a little bit about the subscription, what's been going on with that, how people can. I do have a link to your website on the interview, so all they got to do is click and they can go from there. But give us a little background or instruction on how to get onto your site as a subscriber.
Sure. Well, it's MikeDragosports.com. The name may sound a little egotistical, but you know, after close to 40 years, I developed a name recognition value in Berks County. So I thought it's going to be my site with primarily my writing. We'll let people know exactly what they're getting. We sell a yearly subscription. It's $65 for a year. Some people object to that. They think everything on the internet should be free. But you know, this is my job. It's my full-time job. It's the only thing I do. It's no different than subscribing to a newspaper website or other content providers who do it full-time. So there are some people that object to that, but I think what I'm offering is, has value to it, and you can't get it other places. And you know, the local newspaper, which used to produce a lot of content, they no longer have the means to do that. So if you're really deep into football, high school basketball, track and field, high school baseball, I think I can provide more than other people are right now.
Yeah, you and I talked earlier about a typical day. Now, this is sometimes people don't understand kind of what you do. So I'm impressed with what you do, not only with your business, but you're not just out Friday nights covering, Exeter football. You got a lot of stuff going on. You go to practices. How do you determine where you're going and what pieces you write? I am totally impressed with the content on your website.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, the great thing about the web, as you know, is there are no space limitations, and there's basically no time limitations. I mean, we're a 24/7 product. Of when a story breaks, you know, I put it right up. I don't have to wait, you know, until the next morning's newspaper comes out, which was frustrating sometimes. So that's one great thing. And if there are a lot of things going on, you know, I don't have to say, well, we only have room for these two stories, and these two other stories, they have to wait. If I can get to it, I get to it. We put it up, and you know, try to have fresh content every day. And during the season, football, basketball season, there's always at least one new story, sometimes 3, 4, 5 or more stories throughout the week. And then, of course, on Friday nights in football season, I've partnered with LNP this year, and we're sharing content. We're sharing stories and photos on Friday night and Saturday afternoon football games, which enables my website to cover every Berks County game. I mean, week 1, we had 11 games involving Berks County teams. We were at every game. Now, some of those were handled by LNP reporters, and some of the like this week, for example, Garden Spot's coming to play at Daniel Boone. I'll send one of my reporters to that game and share that story with LNP, and they'll do the same when the Berks teams are in Lancaster County or Lebanon County. So I think it's worked out. It's been a win-win for both of us. You know, with the Lancaster Lebanon Football League expanding to 37 teams, that was, you know, it's about basically a third more games on a Friday night. And LNP management was eager to do complete coverage. They wanted to cover all those games. And I thought, well, we could help each other out here, and I think it's worked out great so far.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go into the sports realm of it now. So you said there's 37 teams. Like, how do you see this progressing? I mean, is this how it's going to be? Are we going to have some growth or some shrinkage? Or, I mean, what's the feeling from Berks County coaches? You talk to those guys all the time.
Well, they're very excited. I haven't heard a bad word about this in the 3-4 years that it's been talked about, and now that it's been implemented. Berks County really needed this. There were 13 teams in the Berks League, 6 in one section, 7 in the other, and you know, that's just not enough teams to fill out your schedule. If you have six teams in your section, that means you need 5 non-league games. And they're not easy to find, especially once you get into week 4 and 5, when the other leagues are all playing league games. There just aren't available opponents out there, which means sometimes you have to go to, you know, Maryland or New Jersey or Western PA to find an opponent. And you don't really want to be driving 3 hours on a Friday night to get to a game, because that means, you know, you're getting home at midnight or later. And it's great to have the scheduling is the #1 issue for the athletic directors and coaches. The scheduling with the 2 leagues combining has become much easier. And the other thing is competition. Both leagues had several small schools that had trouble fielding football teams. You know, when you're a AA team, a AA school, or a single A school, you know, you might only have 30 kids out there or less. It's tough to play football like that. And especially when you have to play larger teams, you can get beat up. You know, you play one game early in the season against a team that, you know, beats you up. You could lose players for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it could ruin your season. So one of the beauties of the new setup with 5 sections, and a lot of, you know, people, obviously they focus on section 1, where you've got Wilson and Manheim Township. Section 2, it's like a dream matchup, pitting Manheim Central now with Exeter, Mifflin, Warwick. You know, those are some heavyweights. But the real beauty of this league is section 5, where you have these small schools like Anvil, Cleona, Kutztown, Schuylkill Valley, Hamburg, which have struggled at times to put a team on the field. Now they're all on a level playing field, and Lancaster Catholic obviously has been a cut above the rest of those, especially when Bruce Harbach was there. They were winning state titles. More recently, they've come back to the field. So I think that's going to be an intriguing section, section 5. Any number of those programs can win that section over the next 10 years. You know, it won't take a miraculous season or a tremendous rebuild. If you get, you know, the momentum going and get 2 or 3 really good players, you could win that section most years. Section 3 is intriguing as well. A lot of people pay attention to Section 4, of course, because you've got big time programs there like Wyomissing, Lampeter, Strasburg, Calico, Berks Catholic. I mean, that is an impressive lineup. But you go to Section 3 and you've got, again, programs that really don't have much football history or success. Ephrata, Muhlenberg recently, Daniel Boone, Twin Valley, Elizabethtown. You know, they've all been 500 at best for the most part. Now, somebody's going to win that section, and it's going to be really great. Great for those teams involved. The competition is going to be very close. So I think each of the 5 sections has a lot to offer, and I think the setup is fantastic right now. Cool.
How about have you been making inroads with the Lancaster coaches, the Lancaster Lebanon guys? I mean, I'm sure that you got speed dial on the Berks County guys, but the LO guys been good to you?
They have, and I know a lot of them from over the years, especially the Section 1 coaches, because Wilson's been in Section 1 for a long time, and it wasn't that long ago that Mifflin and Reading High were in Section 1 too. They were all 3 in there together for about 6 or 8 years. So I think the LL coaches are excited about this, mostly because, as I pointed out, the competition, the level playing field is pretty good in each of the sections.
Yeah, I know recently a lot of the teams on the football have done well at the district level. Maybe just maybe because of competition, it'll make them even a little bit better district and state level when the teams get there. Hey, I got another question for you. So I run a basketball website, not a football website. So let's talk hoops a little bit. So just bouncing off of what you just said, I would love to see Hempfield play Reading at the Geigel. I mean, it would just that would do my heart good to see some of that. So, crystal ball, do you see that ever happening? As far as since we're doing football, do you see basketball kind of going that direction or not?
I haven't heard anybody bring that up. I'm not sure that the need is as great in basketball because scheduling is a little easier. You can play 6 nights a week in basketball. You could play 3 nights in a row if you need. Football, you're not as flexible. You play 1 game a week, Friday or Saturday, and travel can be difficult. With basketball, teams don't have as much trouble finding games. So I don't know that we're going to see that in basketball anytime soon.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either, but all I know is I'd like to see the big boys playing down there at the Geigel once in a while. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So as we're on that, let's talk about Reading High. Tell me, I mean, how long have you covered Reading High boys basketball? How many years?
At least 30 years, I would think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, going back to Danielle played in. He was a freshman around 85, 86. I was covering him then. So yeah.
All right.
Over 30 years, right?
Not quite Stu Jackson, but everything after Stu. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I saw Stu play when I was in high school. Anyway, so pick out a couple of teams or a couple of games that you saw involving Reading that stick out in your mind, like right now, without even looking at notes or anything.
Right. Well, I mentioned Danielle Marshall, who went on to play at UConn and in the NBA for 15 years or so. He had a really long pro career. You look back at him. I mean, one of the greatest games I've ever seen. It still ranks right up there. Was his senior year, the District 3 championship game against Harrisburg, and the Dan Bowie and Harrisburg had a guard named, I think, Robert Tate. That was one of the greatest games I've ever seen. It was at the old Hershey Park Arena, and these guys went up and down the floor and they got after it. And Harrisburg won. Reading had a lead and couldn't hold on, but they were playing above the rim. Danielle and Bowie and some of the other guys. It was just a fantastic game. More recently, now you have to go back to the Reading's 2 state championship games in 2016 with Lonnie Walker. I mean, you could pick out a dozen Lonnie Walker highlights, but obviously the state championship against Pine Richland was just special because, Reading's got one of the longest histories in the state. This is their 122nd season coming up, and they never won a state title. you know, they they must have lost to Chester 4, 5, 6 times in the Eastern Final, where, you know, those were the two best teams in the state, but Reading just kept running into it. You mentioned Stu Jackson, his senior year. Uh, they lost the state title by a point. There was a foul at the buzzer, and the other team, General Braddock, scored with no time left on the clock. I mean, that's just devastating. And the Reading fans have lived with that for years. You know, their whole lives. They went with never having a state title, but seeing schools like Chester and Harrisburg and all these other programs win state titles. And that's what made 2016 so special, because it was the first time, and it was a celebration the likes of which you'd never seen. I mean, if you were probably in the building that night,
Yeah,
and there were about 10,000 people there, and about 9,700 were wearing the red and black colors. It was a total Reading High fan base, and the guys we mentioned, Stu Jackson was there, Danielle Marshall was there, all the Red Knights for the 70s and 80s and former coaches were there. They all wanted this so badly, and it was just incredible to see Lonnie and his teammates deliver that.
Yeah.
And almost as incredible, and I don't know which one was greater, but in 2021, Reading won another state title, which was totally unexpected, because that was the COVID year. I mean, no one even knew if there would be a season. And at Reading, they had suspended fall sports. So, you know, there was a chance that their entire winter season was going to be suspended as well. They got off to a late start, and at the last minute, the school board approved it. And they started, I think Reading started even later than everybody else. It was such an up in the air year. Nobody even knew if there'd be a season. And then Reading had this guy named Stevie Mitchell to deal with from Wilson. Stevie, one of the all-time greats in Berks County history, now playing at Marquette. He had a terrific team. They waged a 4-game series as good as any you'd ever want to see. Each team won 2 of the 4. Wilson won the Berks County championship game, and 2 weeks later, Reading came back and beat Wilson for the district title. And that year, as remember, it was only the champions advanced. Right. You know, so Reading was the only team out of District 3 and 6A to advance. Any other year, Stevie Mitchell's team makes the state playoffs, and they very well could have got to the end and played Reading for a 5th time, but it just was unfortunate that was the COVID year. And then Reading gets to the state final. They play Archbishop Wood, which was just loaded with Division I guys. I think their entire starting lineup were D1 guys. Reading, not the case. I mean, they had a future D1 guy in Ruben Rodriguez, but he was a freshman. They had Amor Osamano, who's now playing at Westchester, but was not a big time prospect. But they just had a lot of guys that played hard and were relentless on defense, and they never gave up. They were down, I think, 14-2 or 3 in the first 4 or 5 minutes of that game. It looked like they were going to get run off the floor, and they just hung in there, and they came back. And it was a beautiful thing to watch, because on one hand, you had Archbishop Wood and its Philadelphia All-Star team, who were great individual talents, but they didn't necessarily play together too well. The other hand, you had these Reading kids who have grown up playing their whole lives together. And even Ruben Rodriguez, who played at Muhlenberg as a freshman, he came back to Reading. He grew up in Reading in the KTB youth program, which is an excellent feeder system. Those kids had played together since they're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grades, and they had traveled throughout the East Coast in tournaments in the spring and summer. So they knew about, you know, big time competition and tournaments and pressure. And they just played so well together. It was just a thing of beauty to watch, because they knew exactly where the other guy was going to be on the court at all times. And it's something you just can't replace. And a lot of people enjoyed it, even those from not from Reading, because it was public school versus private school. And it showed the strength of a community, kids playing together their whole lives versus a team that comes together later, and Reading won. It was a tremendous game.
Yeah. I've sat next to Coach when he's coaching, and they're an interesting crew. They really are. They get after it, and they're very. People ask me So, I'm from the LL, and they'll watch a coach and he's a little nutty, and they're like, "Oh, what's with that guy?" And I'm like, "He is what he is. He is genuine. That you talk to the guy before and after, you're going to get the same thing." How has Reading, not Reading High, but Berks County, I think, at least recently, and my good friend Andy will say this too, is Berks County has really come up in the basketball world. Not only Reading, but you had Wilson, you have Muhlenberg. You have a lot of good teams. What has precipitated that in your thoughts, in your coverage?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, certainly with, you mentioned Wilson and Muhlenberg, they're thrown in there with Reading, so they have to compete directly with Reading, and that only makes you better when you're playing, top competition. Wilson has just been on a roll. They have an excellent coach, Matt Coldren. It's been there for almost 20 years now, and has a great system. And they, even since Stevie Mitchell left, they've been very competitive, and they're going to be really good this year. I got a chance to see them play in the summer quite a bit. They're going to sneak up on some people. They had some individuals really improve a lot. They were very young last year, but watch out for them. They could definitely be a Final Four team in the district and a state qualifier. Muhlenberg, interesting situation. Tyrone Nesby, former NBA player, came in about 3-4 years ago and totally revamped that program. They went from 2 wins to 9 to playing in a district championship to winning a district championship in his 3 years. And he left, and Matt Flowers, who was Rick Perez's top assistant at Reading for those 2 state championship runs, Matt Flowers is now running that Muhlenberg program, and he is. It's kind of like, a Reading High North. He has the same philosophy in terms of conditioning and hard work and playing for each other. And you're never going to see any team play harder than Rick Perez's kids at Reading High. They hit the floor and they truly play for each other, and that's what Matt Flowers now has the Muhlenberg kids doing. The same mentality, same. It's really the same playbook. In terms of building teams and chemistry and getting players to play for each other. So last year Muhlenberg beat Reading. And they're going to have a chance to do it again because Muhlenberg's pretty deep. I also saw them play this summer. They're going to be good. And now they're back in the same section as Reading High. They'll move up to Section 1 this year, so they'll get to play them twice in the regular season. So, yeah, it's been really really great to watch. And Berks Catholic, of course, they're coming off a district championship. They're going to be very good too. I think they're going to surprise some people. They're going to be every bit as good as they were last year. So they're a threat to challenge for that 4A title.
Yeah, we saw Berks Catholic at Mennonite last year. They had a really good guard, if I remember right. He was player of the game. I don't know if he was a junior. I think he was. He was very.
Yeah, Josiah Jordan.
Yeah,
yep.
he was a great interview. We interviewed him afterwards, and he was very positive, and we talked a little hoops, and that was it. Usually I don't talk hoops with a kid, but we were talking about like what we need to work on, and he was very, very good. And I saw Wilson play Hempfield. I don't know if it was in their tournament or a district game, and they had some really explosive guards. They were I think they were juniors. I think both of them were juniors. I don't know if they're both football players, but they were very athletic, and you could see some pieces there. They weren't quite polished last year, but you could see some pieces. I think they had that game won, but they lost it. But it was good. I like seeing some of the coaches from Berks, and they're always funny when I talk to them. They're like, "Oh, we love your website," and I'm like, "Well, now I'm Mike Drago's got a better website than Dell, so it's all good."
Hey, there's room for everybody.
Well, I mean, you're in a different spot than we were when we first started. So when we first started, I think it's been 23 years, maybe 24. But when we first started, we were definitely the new kid on the block, and we were really looked down upon. Like really looked down upon. It took us a while to get to the point where it's like we're not necessary. We're just providing a service that you guys aren't providing, and that's kind of how we look at it. And the same way with you know, if you want to call it competition, I just look at it as like, we do our thing, and whatever everybody else does, that's their thing. And you know, there's different models, and I think like you, it's connections with the kids, it's connections with the teams, it's all positive. You know, sometimes we get when we first started, we would get, I would have a comment section, I still do, on each of our pages. And some of the guys that were working with us, they were like, "Hey, you can't do that. People are going to complain and moan and complain." And the only complaint I got early was like, well, you don't like Lebanon County teams. And I'm like, okay, well, let me tell you something. I graduated from Lebanon County up there, so Annville, Cleona, so I understand all about it. So, but really, Mike, the only comments we get is like, do you know a schedule, or do you know what's going on? We just don't get that negative stuff. Now, the nice thing is that we found out that we can, no comments are shown unless it runs through me first. So if we do get a blast comment, you know, like this coach sucks or something like that, it's not gonna show up. It's got to be approved. It's got to be approved on us. Now, we did find on live stream, which is total different animal, that if you open up that live stream comment section, you're going to have some issues. The fans are a little crazy, and if it's not monitored, it's really bad. So do you have comments on your website, or can people just send something to you and you can respond to it, or how does that work on your site?
Yeah, I don't have comments on it directly. Now I'm on Twitter. I have a big presence on Twitter, so people can, you know, every story that I write, I post on Twitter. So if people have a comment, you know, they can attach it there. And yesterday, somebody questioned one of my headlines. They just thought it was a little insensitive, I guess. And so I actually, you know, I looked at it and said, okay, you know, I can change that. And I did. I usually change the headline. You know, we had a coach, Conrad Weiser coach, passed away,
Yes.
Conrad. And the headline said that he lost a battle with cancer, and the person took it, meaning, you know, the Kyle's not a loser, he's a winner, which is absolutely true. So I just, you know, slightly changed the headline, and that was fine. But you know, I understand that it's a sensitive situation. But generally, the comments have been very positive, surprisingly.
I always laugh too. So because of the world that you and I live in, we can change things like on a snap. It's like somebody will write me and say, you got the score wrong, and I'll look at it and it's like, well, check it, because I don't think it's wrong. And it might have been wrong to start with, but we fixed it, so that's good. You know, that cracks me up, because you know how it is. Once that stuff's out of the newspaper, it's printed, and you can't pull it back. You just can't.
That's right. It's there for posterity.
Yeah. Let me. I wasn't going to go down this road, but let me talk to you about Kyle Conrad a little bit. So, I know I've done this once, and you've done it more than once. How does writing a story like that, how difficult is it, and what perspective do you take, and how do you go about putting that together?
Well, it's very difficult because, you know, we know these people. I mean, I covered Kyle in high school. He was a terrific player at Governor Mifflin, and then for Elizabethtown too. He was a 1,000-point scorer there too. And so it hits home, you know, to see him struggling as he has the last couple of years. And you know, now when he passes away, it's not easy. It's not a story you'll want to write about, but you know, you have to, because people want to, people care about him. And I think it offers some measure of comfort for people to read a story. And I'm going to work on one today. Later, I'm going to go down and talk to some of his former players, and, you know, get their views on what kind of impact they made on or that he made on their lives, because he was that kind of a person that, you know, he's just a very genuine person, and he really cared about the kids and the game. And you're never going to hear a bad word about Kyle. People just, you know, adored him. And So it's not an easy story to write. I mean, the hardest story I ever wrote was about 3-4 years ago when Anthony Myers, the football player at Berks Catholic, he died at, I think he was 17 or 18 years old. He had brain cancer and, fought it for a couple of years. And, it was just devastating to go through that, because he was such a wonderful kid and had such a great attitude. And like I say, it's not, it's not like a journalist writing about the Queen passing or president, people that you don't really know or deal with. I mean, these are people in our community that we see at church and grocery store and on Friday nights, and you see them go through, the highs and lows. You're there for the good stuff and the bad, and to have to put that down in words, that was very, very difficult. But it's part of the job. I've written a lot about coaches who passed away. John Silent, the great basketball coach at Kutztown, and John Gursky, the great football coach at Wilson. And it's what we do.
I've been lucky enough. I've only had to do it once for one of our guys. So, and I know it just ripped me up, and I didn't know how to go about it. I had no clue. So I did lean on a couple people. Actually, I asked Mike Bullock. I said, Mike, how do I go about this? And he was very good. He was good to me. So yeah, that's a tough thing. But as you said, people are kind of looking for that too. If it's one of your people, they want to know, however you spin it, however you do it, then that's it's interesting to people to see that, I think. So anyway,
I just want to, just before you move on to the next subject, I was just reminded of a couple of years ago, Dick Brocker, who was a great player at Kutztown basketball and went on to play at NC State. He passed away, and I wrote about it. And his wife, a few days later, actually wrote an email to me thanking me. And it seemed, the story seemed to give her some comfort. I think to read what other people had to say about her husband, and people who he played with and people who knew him. And so if writing a story like that can give a little comfort to the family, that's the best you could hope for.
Yeah. All right, let's do crystal ball. What's up for Mike Drago sports.com? Because I'm telling you, things change. They'll change. 5 years, if I'm still around 5 years from now, we'll have another conversation, and I'll say, Mike, what changes did you make? So as you're going through this process and doing football, what do you think the future lies, and what adjustments do you think you have to make on your end for your website?
Well, obviously we'd like to continue to grow the site, get more subscribers and more advertisers. And if that happens, then I can hire more writers and cover different sports. Right now, it's basically football, boys and girls basketball, track and field, and baseball. But, 2 years down the line, if things are going well, if the website continues to be well received, and it's financially possible, I would love to expand and cover more sports.
Sure. One last thing. Talk to me about, and we recently, LO Hoops have recently got involved with picking the all-state players, the media. So you've been in this business for a while. How has that changed? What role do you play? I know you write some of the briefs at the end once the teams are selected. Give us a little feel for that process.
Yeah, the all-state basketball teams, Mike Gross took that over a few years ago. Traditionally, or for a long time, it was handled by the Associated Press. They handled all of that. And the AP, like a lot of newspapers, just kind of dwindled away, and they weren't able to continue to do that. So somebody had to step up, and I forget the name.
Mike Bullock took it.
Was it? Yeah, Bullock took it over and ran it for about, close to 10 years, I think.
Oh.
But it's a lot of work. And he got to the point where he just said, I can't do this. And Mike Gross stepped up, and I've been trying to help him as much as possible. Basically, we try to get input from as many sports writers across the state as we can. We have, sports writers nominate players, provide stats, and then we exchange those with all the other sports writers, and then we vote. We pick teams in all 6 classifications, and I think last year Mike added a non-POAA category, which is difficult. The problem was we didn't know where to put them in the the top 6 categories, because it's such a different animal. So Mike thought we'll just have a 7th all-state team, and we did that. But it's a lot of work. It's a long process, and people don't realize how much goes into picking the teams. But he's done a lot of work, and I'm glad to help him out whatever I can. So I'll write 1 or 2 of the stories, and he writes a couple, and he gets other people to write some of them as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, man, thanks for the chat. Good luck to you. I love covering your stuff. Even when my credit card bounces, we take care of that. And you'll remind people that the credit card's expired and all that. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at Hershey, and I'm sure that we'll run into each other before then. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your work. I thank you for your time. Berks County loves you. LL's loving you. It's all about love, brother.
Thanks, Dale. Great talking to you.
All right, man.